Hi, my name is Taylor, and I built out my Nissan Xterra this winter. I am really excited to do some really cool road trips in this, and I'm all about making the outdoors more accessible and a more inclusive space. So my goal here is to share as many tips and tricks as I have to help that make a reality. So to start, I made a cardboard template of what I wanted to do. So I measured everything out in my car. I measured the ceiling height, like where I wanted everything to be, width, length, where I wanted boxes to go in storage, and like how wide I wanted my table, and all that kind of stuff. Drew it out on a piece of paper, and then I went to Home Depot and I got some big like moving boxes. I cut them up with a little box cutter, a little knife, and then I traced out exactly what I wanted my wood pieces to be cut as. And that was super, super helpful because it turned out that one of my measurements was like pretty far off and it wasn't going to fit. So I'm really glad that I did the template first. So that's my biggest recommendation, is do a template first with something like cardboard or paper, even like newspaper. Something that is cheap and easy to do and inexpensive, so that you can like practice on that before you're cutting wood that you just paid like $50 to $100 for. Next, I took a trip to Home Depot, and these are my very detailed plans. Look how beautiful.
Lovely, lovely.
All right, you ready? We got our supplies. All told, it was about $100. I got wood, I got screws that I needed, some angle iron for underneath the table to hold the table up, hinges for the table. We already had some like polyurethane stuff that I could paint the table with, so I already had that, and I already had all of the tools, which was super helpful. So if you have tools or someone that you can borrow tools from, that is going to help you so much. Tools are definitely the most expensive part of this project. It's pretty budget friendly as long as you have those things available to you. So once I got all of my supplies, we headed over to my grandpa's house, and he was super helpful. My dad, my grandpa, my sister, even my grandma and my aunt ended up helping. Like, I am such a person who, if I can do it alone, I kind of would rather do it alone a lot of times. But this is definitely one that I'm glad I did not attempt to do alone. I don't know if it would have been possible. I would have needed a lot of clamps and a lot of other things that could have acted as all of the extra hands that helped me. So I'm super thankful to have had all of their help. So definitely enlist some family and friends if you have it. So step one was to measure out everything that we wanted to cut from the large piece of wood, the large piece of plywood that was going to be the table leg, and the sleeping platform, and then also the 2x4 little strips that were going to be the legs. So we measured and marked all of those, and then we started cutting. It took about a day to do all the cuts, and then the next day we started putting things together. So we used a drill and some wood screws to attach the legs to the base, or the platform, I guess you could call it.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, every time, yes.
Are you holding it?
Yeah.
Man, that thing's heavy.
And then we attached the angle iron to the bottom of the platform, and the angle iron is what will hold the table up. One important point here is before we attach the table legs, similar to the cardboard, I put the platform in the back of the car, I put the table legs in there and just kind of propped them up where I wanted them, and then I put my storage containers in there and made sure that they would fit the way I wanted them to. And I ended up having to kind of reconfigure where the legs were going to go so that they wouldn't block the storage containers and make them inaccessible. So I definitely recommend, again, just trying that out before you actually like screw something in and make it permanent. So once we had our legs on and the angle iron, we had our table cut, and then we just had this little extra strip of plywood that we used as the table leg. The table isn't going to be like holding a lot of weight, so it doesn't need something huge like a 2x4, which is good because I have a storage container underneath there, and it would take away a lot of my storage space if I had to have something that thick as a leg. So we used a hinge to attach the leg to the table, and then on the side we used two, they're like lid support or table leg hinges, and those are locking. And so we used one of those on each side. We really only needed one, but I'd already bought two, so I was like, might as well just use two, make it more stable. And so those go on either side to just kind of like give the leg a lot more stability, and those lock so you can press them into place, and then your table is a lot more stable, and then you just pop them back in and fold it back up. The way I have my table designed, the leg is longer than the table itself, and that's something that I measured like after I had the platform built, because I wasn't sure like exactly how high the platform was going to be with the car and like what surface it was going to be on, blah blah blah. So essentially the leg ended up being longer than the table, so I have to take my table like completely out, fold out the leg, and then kind of put the table top back in, which works totally fine. It's not an issue, because unless your platform is going to be longer than like the distance from the ground to the top of your platform, then that's just like what you're going to have to do, unless you have a folding table leg somehow. So just something to be aware of. Next, I took a router and I finished off the edges of everything. I did the bottom and the top just so that I would have some rounded edges and the edges of the plywood wouldn't catch on my clothes or give me splinters or like anything like that. So I just made them nice and smooth, and then I used a sander on the whole thing. I used just like normal sandpaper on the routed edges so that it wouldn't get too crazy and mess up those edges. I also used the router on the tabletop because that's something I'm going to be using a lot, and I don't want those edges to catch. And then the last step was to add polyurethane. I don't know how to say that. Whatever. The clear stuff. I put the clear stuff on the tabletop and on the platform, basically everything on the top. I didn't do the bottom or the legs. And that just kind of sealed it and also like made it a pretty color. So that was nice. I didn't really want to stain it, so I settled on the polyurethane. And then just for some final touches, I got a water container from REI. And then I also have a Coleman stove. It's a single burner stove. I have these long storage containers from Walmart. They do come with lids. I just took them off, but I can always put them back on later if I want to. And one upgrade I'm planning on doing for sure is adding a foam mattress topper. I have to find one that's pretty cheap because I'm basically going to cut it to the size. And so that's my plan there. Right now I just have a sleeping bag. I can throw in some more sleeping bags, pillows, blankets, all that kind of stuff to make it cozy, but the foam mattress pad will make it so much better to sleep on. It's not horrible right now, but it'll just make it like a normal bed, which will be perfect. I'm also working on making window coverings, so I will have hopefully a tutorial up for that. I'm making mine out of cardboard and like black fabric, unless that goes horribly wrong. So right now I'm working on that. And just a couple more considerations. I did take completely out the back seats. There's like these little red levers on the bottom, and you can use those to take the seats completely out. And so those are just like hanging out in my apartment right now. So that's like one thing to think about. Is I thought about making this whole thing fold so that I could like fold it into the trunk essentially and like pop up the back seat if I had people riding with me and like wanted to have that option. But the way that like it worked out, I would have had to make the platform higher to cover the seats, or I would have had to make it like shorter, and then I wouldn't have had enough room to lie down. So I decided to just take out the seats. But that's something that you can think about and measure and decide on your own car if that's a smart decision for you. And that's it. So this is my little home on wheels now. I'm really excited to go on a bunch of road trips with this, and I will post a little tour video once I have moved into it a little bit more and used it and figured out the kinks and what works and what doesn't. I will definitely update, and I'm super excited. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will be posting the specifications for this build. It's specific to a Nissan Xterra. But if you have another car, you can definitely just modify it and measure for yourself and make a template, and it'll be great. I'm super excited for this.